Hi, today we are going to talk about energy and chakras and their interconnectedness. So, as you know or should know, chakras are energy transportation or transformation portals. See it as a door from one room in the house to another one. So they're also in the cosmos or in the universe, you can use the chakras or energy portals. And for instance, stars and suns might be a chakra if you want to look at it like that. The same thing happens with the black hole because that is a big one. So they translate a form of energy from one state to another, from one form to another, from one perspective to another, from one form to another. So when you go from one portal to another, from one room through the door to another, the function of you becomes different. You can go from the living room where you live. You can go to the bathroom where you bath or go to the toilet or whatever, or you shower. So the function or the form or the perspective of the goal of the two rooms are different, but you, the self, don't change. You are the same. From the energy perspective, you should consider the law of the conservation of energy, meaning energy does not disappear, it only changes from form or state or frequency. So in this matter, when we are addressing a portal, we go from one room to another, from one state to another, but the energy does not change. You just transform an energy from one state to another. So also a chakra or a portal transforms or transposes one form of energy to another, considering the total energy form or content, both sides adding up, you have a conservation of the energy. So also from a portal or chakra view, you might consider that there is a change between the left side and the right side, or the in and the out, but the total amount of energy is the same. That means when we use chakras as perspectives or dimensions, we do not grow. Growth is not considered as something less or something more. Growth is just a transformation from one side to another. So, in fact, growth on itself does not exist. You add a perspective, you add a dimension onto something close of the subject or the energy frequency of that chakra. So you're adding a perspective. There is nothing changing. Of course, the form is changing, but growth on itself is not adding something, only adding a perspective, not an amount. Knowing that, a portal or a chakra is neutral on itself. It does not change the total amount of energy. when you count the amount of energy on one side and you add it up with the other side, you will perceive the same amount. So the energy that is perceived flowing from one side to another is also neutral. Consider that we might experience in our daily life as an experience or an energy form or an event as good and bad. But from this perspective, this is totally wrong. There is nothing good or bad, there is a different form or perspective. One side of the experience through you, the portal, to the end of the experience. So the experience on itself is just a transformation of energy, neither good or bad, good or evil. It is just a change of perspective through a portal or a chakra. What might happen is that, as one stated, when you're in the living room, the thing you do is that you live, you eat or whatever, you sit down, you watch television. So the action which you do there will be different than what you do in the bathroom. But it's still an action, and you might like more being in the bathroom than the living room, but that does not matter. That is a preference, that is a choice. The energy is the same. Whether it's of your liking or not is pure, suggestive, and personal. So, considering defining a chakra, for example, the root chakra, as the root chakra about survival, is totally wrong, because survival has a negative connotation. The root chakra is about life, transforming one part of life, one frequency of life into another, the living room and the bathroom. That you call that life and death has again a negative connotation. That means that in the living room you live, and in your bathroom you don't live, you die. That is impossible. There can be no disappearance of energy. That you are not in your physical body, that is a perspective or a dimension. The same, the living room has a goal and a perspective and a frequency, and the bathroom has another frequency. You can call it a change of perspective, even a change of dimension, but disappearance is out of order. That is not correct. Both sides of the portal, life and death, the total energy has not changed. The function of a portal or chakra or anything alike is just perceiving or transforming one form of energy into another, one frequency into another. And you can do that in several ways, which I talked about in the 3 to 6 dimension mapping. You can do that, for instance, from the third dimension. That means you go from A to B, and every step between A and B, you perceive the difference or the change in frequency. the change in space-time, the change in feeling, the change in experience. That is where the third dimension comes in. In the third dimension, you go figuratively from one state to another through a portal, and the portal is here, space-time portal. So the portal here is that you transform step by step. You go through a state and you change frequency, and the goal is to perceive the change of frequency. In the sixth dimension, no, back. So in the third dimension, you perceive that change, that transformation with something, what we call the self, what we call the body-mind system. In the sixth dimension, we are not perceiving the change within the self, but we are looking from a distance to a self, and we experience that self like a viewer, like an observer, and you see that self changing from frequency to frequency, and you are a spectator or a manager, and you manage, you have a different six-dimensional perspective. That's where the dimensions are meant for. You can dive into the change, or you can watch and view the change. Both are perfectly a correct perspective, but it is your choice in which perspective or which dimension you want to be. Of course, understand again from the mapping from 3 to 6, in the sixth dimension, you are not the self that is experiencing. In fact, from our three-dimensional perspective, there is no self. So, combining transformation, energy, and chakras, as an example, the root chakra, defining the root chakra as survival is just a 3D dimensional perspective. A higher dimensional perspective of that chakra is life. You are experiencing life, or through a step-by-step transformation, or from a higher view, for instance, the sixth dimension, where you watch life transforming from one state to another, and you are unaffected. So the chakra on itself is just a tool, or to perceive through from the third dimension, or to watch and view from a distance in the sixth dimension. The chakra is just a tool, and you use it from your perspective, your dimension. The same thing counts for instance, the second chakra, the sacral chakra, which we call also the sex chakra. For me, sex is not the correct definition. Sex is again an experience from the third dimension. You have sex with someone. The more neutral, more higher perspective definition of the sacral chakra is sharing. And there, from a higher dimension, you cannot not share. Life is one in number. You cannot share something else but life. You can only share the one life with the one life. You can only share the one life with yourself or another, but you have to share it. Sharing has no specific self who is sharing. That depends on your perspective, your dimension, here the third or the sixth. So, very specifically, and as a little joke, you are having sex all the time, or with yourself, or with another, but you share life, and sharing is experiencing. So how you think you are experiencing, how you think you are experiencing sex sharing, that is up to you, your point of view, where you think you are, your perspective, for instance, the third or the sixth dimension. But sex is always there because sharing is always there. Thus, the way you use a portal, the way you use a transformational experience is up to you. You can go frame by frame, photo by photo, through the whole linear movie. Or you can make some choices. You can highlight an experience between the one side of the portal and the other side, and you can highlight some phase, some point in time space that you would like. That's the fourth dimension. You can choose a different road path, so to speak, a soul path. Then you say, oh, I'm interested in more, a little bit here to the left and a little bit. So you are preferring sets of frequency. But the beginning and the end of the frequency, the transformation, is the same. That is the fifth dimension. Another way of saying that is you can highlight spots, you can choose a path, so you can, as I said, define it as attraction or rejection. If you want to go not this way or that way, then you reject that point, that path, that direction, that specific road of transformation. Rejecting it, not choosing it, does not mean the path is there, does not mean the experience is there, does not mean the energy is there. Rejecting has nothing to do, or should have nothing to do, with good and bad. Because when you are rejecting it, you cannot reject something that is there. Energy does not disappear. If you think rejecting is having deleting that energy, that is impossible. You cannot delete the energy. You can prefer sequences, you can prefer frequencies, but you cannot reject or delete. Trying to delete any type of form of energy will feel off. You will say, because you cannot. The thing is there. That means you can watch a chair and pretend it is not there. You can open your eyes and pretend it's not there. You can close your eyes and pretend it's not there, but the chair is still there. You cannot reject. reality. And reality is energy is always present. So the reverse engineered thing is the same. Rejecting something that is always there and will always be there feels off, and we call that dis-ease. It does feel not easy. You are forcing something that is not available to be forced, which is not, I can't find the word here, so it's not even possible. So the reversed engineering of dis-ease or rejecting is embracing, adding the energy that is already there. So when you're adding or allowing that energy again, or you define that energy as possible or good or feasible, then you, as a matter of speaking, embrace again that part of that energy. Understand again that the third dimension is perceiving a frequency change or an experience change from one state to another, step by step. So that means not everything is there where you are at that moment, but that is the goal. The goal is to experience the change. But that doesn't mean it is not there. It only means it is not there where you are in your perspective. So embracing cannot, or healing cannot happen in the third dimension, because the third dimension is just based on not having the full perspective. So when you want to ease your pain or your disease, you need to back up and go to a higher dimension and see that there is a self that has been experiencing a transformation through a portal. And then when you open up yourself to a higher dimension, for instance, the sixth dimension, there you will notice the chair was always there. So this is only, or illness is only, a state of mind possible in the third dimension. The only thing you need to do is, or you agree that you don't want to see it there and you are in peace with it. And when you're in peace with it, something that is not an illness, that is happiness, because you're content with who and what you are. Or when you're not content who you are at that moment, you have to change perspective, dimension, and see, oh wait, this is just an experience from one state to another, and you stop the third dimensional perspective and you change it, for instance, to a sixth dimension perspective, and there you will see disease or illness does not exist.